I've been reading my Bible. I was reading this week a parable that Jesus told to one of his disciples, Peter. So we're going to talk about that parable today. But let's get ready. Okay, this is what I'm going to tell you to do. I'm going to give you an instruction, and you are going to listen and then do what I instruct you to do. All right. First of all, please wiggle one finger. Wiggling, pretty good. Good. All right. Now this instruction is kick your feet and wave hello. Kicking feet, waving hello. Good. All right. Ready for longer instruction? Here it comes. Flap your elbows, stick out your tongue, spin around. Flap, stick, spin. Good. All right, there's one more. Shake your right leg, shake your left leg, wiggle your shoulders back and forth, bend down and touch the floor. Did you do all of those instructions? Did you remember? Good. Now this time, I am going to do an example. I'm going to be an example of your instructions. I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to do something. And then when it's your turn, you do what you saw me do. All right, this is the first one. Watch first, I'll tell you when it's your turn. Your turn, go. Rolling, yeah. Good, okay. Here's the next one for you to watch my example and then take that as your instruction of what to do. All right, your turn. Okay. All right, here's another instruction for you to watch my example and you obey the example. Your turn. Good. Okay. We need good listening, good watching. Sometimes it's important to watch, and good obeying. That's what I learned about. First of all, I was reading about that in the Old Testament, like right at the beginning. And that was about when God created everything, the world and everything that was in it, and he created the first people, Adam and Eve. Do you know what God did? He gave them instructions so that they would know how to live. They were new. The earth was new. Everything was new. So God gave them instructions. He told them to take care of the garden. He had planted a garden for them, and he said, this is your instruction. You take care of the garden. He told Adam, you name all the animals. Those were fun instructions. Those were fun to obey. Adam named all the animals, and they took care of the garden. God told them another instruction of something not to do. He said, do you see that tree that's right in the center of the garden? Has lots of fruit on it. It's very important you listen to my instructions. Do not eat any fruit off of that one tree. Eat fruit from every other tree that you want to, but not that one tree. So Adam and Eve listened, and they obeyed part. They took care of the garden. Adam named the animals. But they didn't obey the part where God said, do not eat from the fruit of that tree. So because they had not done what he instructed them to do, that was being disobeying, and that's called sin, disobeying God. God told them, your life is going to be harder now. You're going to have to struggle, and you will die. When somebody does something like working, and then they get paid for what they did, that's called wages. So you do something, you get paid something, wages for what you did. The Bible says that the wages of sin, for people who sin, what they get paid is death. That was an important lesson for Adam and Eve. Well, you know, after Adam and Eve, then there were more people, lots and lots and lots more. And then God was telling people different things about how to live and instructing them along. And then at one point, he wrote down the instructions for people. We call it the 10 Commandments. He wrote it on stone of, this is what you do, this is what you do not do, so that they could hear from people, and some of the people heard from God and told other people, but that they could also read it and see what the instructions were. People still kept sinning. At one point, God the Father sent God the Son, Jesus, to earth. And he sent him down so that he could spend time here on earth telling people about God the Father, telling people about God's plan for us, but also because Jesus is God and man, he came to live as a man so that we could see what it's like to live without sinning. Jesus did not ever sin. He is the only person who did not sin. So for 3.5 years, Jesus walked all around Israel telling people and showing people what it was like to be a person that God said we were to be like. He had 12 men with him, the disciples. One of those disciples was named Peter. Peter wanted to be like Jesus. He could tell that Jesus was living the way that God wanted him to live. So Peter had a difficulty with that. Sometimes people would make Peter angry, or they'd hurt his feelings. Sometimes it was his friends, sometimes it was people he didn't know, sometimes it was his brother. More than that, he hated it when somebody would do something to him. He really hated it. It would hurt his feelings, or it would make him angry. Let's do a little hurt feeling thing. Oh, it just hurts my feelings. Did you do it? Yeah. Sometimes he would be angry. Oh, that just makes me angry. Do a little angry thing. Oh, it makes me angry. That's how he was. Well, there was one day that somebody actually had sinned, done something to Peter that he didn't like, and Peter was like, He came up to Jesus and he said, how many times do I need to forgive people? Like, should I forgive them 7 times or what? Peter was probably thinking, they'll think that I'm real good. If I say 7 times and I'm going to forgive 7 times, that's a lot. Maybe people will be impressed with me. Well, maybe someone was impressed with him, but Jesus was not. He said, no, let's do it 70 times 7. Why don't you just forgive people 70 times 7 times? All right, get up your counting fingers here. Here's mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again. 1, 2. Now wait a minute. We're not going to count 70 times 7. It's too much. That's what Peter was probably thinking, like, whoa, 70 times 7? And nobody deserves that. So Jesus thought about that and he said, Peter, I think it's time for a parable. Do you remember parables, what they are? Stories that Jesus tells that are fun to listen to, interesting, but make you have to think like, oh, what does that mean? Jesus told him a parable. This is the parable that he told. He said that there was a king, and the king had loaned money to lots of his different servants. He had lots of servants. And then it became time, when it was time for the servants to pay him all back. So he had them all called into him, and he said, it's time now, come on up here one at a time. And servant number 1 came up to him, and the king said to him, you owe me 50 million silver coins. Pay it right now. And now this is time for us to take your collar and kind of go, you can cough a little too. That was a shock. So the servant number 1 said, I can't. Let's put our hands together like this. Please, he said, please. Give me more time. I'll do it, but please, I can't right now. And the king said, you pay me the 50 million coins now, or I will sell you, and I will sell your wife, and I will sell everything you own so that I can get my money back. Okay, it's time to do this again because he didn't have anything else he could say, so let's do this. Please, 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 please. And the king was like, well, okay. You are never going to be able to pay the huge debt that you owe me. Debt, that word. Okay, if we take something from someone temporarily and we know that we have to give it back, like money or something else, the thing that we have, it doesn't really belong to us. It belongs to the other person, but we have it for right now. That's called a debt. That means it has to be paid back. So the king said, you would never be able to pay me back that huge debt. I will have mercy on you. I will cancel that debt. I will pay myself. You can go free. Well, the servant number 1 was probably like, thank you, Your Majesty, and backed out of there very formally. And then when he got outside, he had his happy face and his happy inside, and he was like singing, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're Wait a minute. I see servant number 1 over there. He owes me money. He owes me 100 of the small coins. I'm getting him right now. So he went over there and he grabbed servant number 2 and he started choking him, and he said, you give me my money right now. And the servant number 2 says, I can't, you're choking me, and I don't have the money right now. If you give me some time to earn it, and I'll pay you back. Servant number 1 said, no. Police officer, come over here, arrest him, take him to jail. He's not paying me the money that he owes me. Goodbye, go. Uh-oh. Servant number 2 got taken to jail because he couldn't pay servant number 1 a little amount of coins, small coins. Well, there were other servants around, and they saw what servant number 1 did to servant number 2, and they knew what servant number 1 had happened to him when he was with the king, and they all went, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? Daddy? Joking. Oh. They were disgusted. They were upset. So they went to the king, and they told him, he's joking, and he took the money and sent him. And the king said, mm-hmm. And he told his guard, you bring servant number 1 back in here now. Guard went and got servant number 1. He came in. Servant number 1 was like, yes, Your Majesty. He probably had another little gulp. And the king said, you wicked servant, I forgave you a huge debt, and then you went out and would not forgive a tiny little debt to your fellow servant? Now you will pay. You will be punished until you pay. So Jesus explained to Peter, my Father in heaven, God, sees you, Peter, if you're not forgiving someone. And he knows that he has forgiven you a huge debt. Peter, the way that we are to live is to forgive others as God first forgave us. Okay, that's the parable that Jesus told Peter. But when we read things in the Bible, we know that they're not just for Peter, they're for us. So now we need to, this is your instruction for the rest of the week. Your instruction is to think about that parable and think about, how does that apply to you? And that's what I'm going to do too. I'm going to think about, how does that apply to me? I think we'll come up with some very good ideas about that.